Good morning from the Red Room. This is also known as our dining room in my home here in Washington, D.C. I'm Pastor Lani and sorry you're not going to get Will today, but this is, we all need some Sabbath, we all need some rest, and Pastor Will has been working hard every day. Let's just be real. He worked hard every day. So as the administrator for the church, I'm the utility player, so you're stuck with me today. I thought I would just come to you with some reflections on this past week as a few things. As a woman, as a person of color, a brown woman, and also as a recovering evangelical. How about that? There's a phrase that we have here at Foundry, and it's Foundry does all the things. We do all the things. We do all the things. And the interesting thing about that is we do all of those things, but there's an asterisk next to that. It's we do all things because Christ gives us the energy, gives us the creativity, gives us the understanding of where we need to be at what time. And that we joke that we do all the things, but in reality, this last week just proved that there's no way we could have pulled off any form of radical hospitality that was practicing safe social distancing and still supporting and walking alongside our Black brothers and sisters and our trans siblings, and you just name it. There's no way we could have done any of that without the blessing of Christ and the Spirit really guiding all of our directions along the way. So because I am the administrator on the pastoral team, here's some logistics of how we were able to serve our community this last week during the protests that are literally on the same street that the church is based on. So we are on 16th Street in Northwest, and we are I would say maybe a mile, if not less, than from the White House and what is now Black Lives Matter Plaza. I love saying that. The leader of our country now lives at Pennsylvania and Black Lives Matter Plaza. Doesn't that sound great? I love that. Let's just hope, and I'm going to say this because the painting on the street looks great, but let's make sure that we're all holding our government accountable for what follows. Affordable housing, equality for jobs, and just all of those things that Pastor Ben is always referencing in his Friday Ben at 10. So, but this last week, we tried to get down to the St. John's to pray. We were there with our bishop, we were there with their bishop, and the inability to get down to that particular facility was there's just no words. I spoke about this on my personal page, and there's just no way to describe what we were witnessing. But what we witnessed a mile up the street at the church was the fact that we could still support and love and practice radical hospitality, which is a value of Foundries, and it's been a value for several years. So this is nothing new. The way that we were able to do that, to pull that off, was really because the church became all of the people. The church has always been about the people, not the building, but the people that showed up to help practice radical hospitality, the people that showed up to do the prayer vigil on 16th Street when we rang the bells for 8 minutes and 46 seconds. If you haven't practiced just kneeling or laying down on the dirty streets of Washington, D.C. or any city for 8 minutes and 46 seconds, I challenge you to do that, because it's profound and it's convicting. So the folks that showed up, we practiced social distancing. We had masks. We've had more donations in hand sanitizer and masks and water and ice and first aid and snacks. We didn't have to purchase a lot of that. that came from our community. And that came from the community that knew the history of Foundry, that knew that Foundry did all the things, and that Foundry practiced radical hospitality. We had folks ordering stuff to be delivered from Costco, from just a whole host of places. And we were also a cooling station. The mayor had asked us if we would be willing to be a station for folks to come in and use the restroom, and charging station, and just provide air conditioning. The interesting thing about the air conditioning, fun fact, is we hadn't turned it on yet because people hadn't been in the building. Let me repeat that. We have not had folks in our church building since this whole thing started. We follow science, and we listen to what the government, Mayor Bowser, is telling us to do, and we have not been in the building. So the air conditioning hadn't been turned on. Fun. So we got the air conditioning turned on Saturday morning, and we were the cooling place. We were one of several churches in our area that was the cooling station. But we also had to manage how many people came in to use the restroom at a time. So if you are not familiar with Foundry's physical plant, it's essentially 3 buildings. So we were keeping everything contained to what we call the Davenport Center, which is also our basement, if you will. And folks were coming in and using the restrooms that we have down there. But we got loaded with folks coming in, and so we had to stop, and we had to make sure that we had 10 people in the building, no more than 10 people at a time. Well, that line got really long, so we adapted, because we do all the things through Christ. And we went up to the other room, and we started counting where the restrooms are right across from the office. So those are on 2 separate floors. So we practice the social distancing that way. And the last I checked with our counters, our clickers, we served over 500 folks who needed to use our restrooms. And we had just done a deep sanitizing of the building the night before. So it was clean, and we were doing sanitizing throughout the day. And we were making sure that the handles were wiped down, and all of those things that are critically important for us to keep doing this work. So how we did it on the outside was a collaboration. I mean, we talk about in the Bible how we are the hands and feet of Christ. We talk about how each person brings their own strength, their own gifts, their own talents. And to watch folks who have never even stepped foot into a church, or who have, and have been hurt by the church, still offer themselves to serve others. That is the witness. That's the witness that we need to be. We have to be that right now. Our actions are the only thing that is going to really affect change. We can write, and we can put on all of our social media and all of our web communications, all of those things, that we are a radical hospitality driven church, that we love all, welcome all. We practice equality. Pastor Ginger says at the start of every service, no matter what. But unless we show it in our actions, it's a moot point. So we had folks bringing by ice. We had, the power of a tweet can get you 10 cases of water. The power of just showing the signs in solidarity, which, by the way, Pastor Casey and I were able to figure out what we were going to do in the moment. And I am positive when she developed that graphic for us, she had no idea it was going to be on national television, or that it be in the front of the church that she's now serving at, or that it would be in so many selfies. So many folks have walked by our church now that we've got both pride and trans and people of color, and these posters that we've been carrying around and been taking selfies. Tell me that's not evangelism. Tell me that's not us being the witness that we need to be. Now, as a brown woman, I've mentioned this before, my mother is Irish, my father's Filipino, and he was born and raised in Hawaii. And so my full name is Lani. And I get a lot of questions with my name. I get a lot of questions when I'm with my folks. And I never really thought much of it until all of these people are starting to ask questions. And it didn't occur to me, because in our family, it wasn't a thing. It didn't occur to me how many folks really need to understand what that means to those people of color and on our Black siblings. But what I witnessed out there was, as a woman, there are a lot of women that are leading on all fronts. We've got our fearless senior pastor, and we call her around the office, she's Queen Badass. Not sorry about using that word. And we've got women that are leading politically, leading small businesses, leading organizations. And I can't believe that this is even a question anymore. When I look around at the folks that I'm serving alongside, I get to serve. I have the privilege. It's a privilege to serve with folks who honor and lift up each of us, people of color, women, trans, whatever our gifts are to offer. We're being our authentic selves. We're being who God created us to be. And we're doing it because we can do all things in Christ. So I leave that with you. Foundry does all the things. We do it in Christ's name. And we do it for the glory of God. And we do it because we know that the kingdom is coming. Oh, one other thing for all of our friends who don't know this piece, because I've had this question asked as well, and all of our evangelical friends, non-Foundry folks, we reference kingdom because it's about the kinship that we share. We don't reference kingdom simply because there's a lot of negativity with that phrase king. So let's just remember in this season of kinship, when we're serving those who desperately need it, and that while we can do all the things, and we can serve our Black siblings, our people of color, our LGBTQIA folks, that we can do all of these things because we draw our strength in Christ, from Christ. I'll tell you, yesterday was I'd usually take Sabbath on Fridays, and yesterday I could not function. So I called an audible and said, I'm going to switch mine to Monday. And I did some self-care, which is so necessary. And Pastor Kelly reminds us all the time to practice self-care. And I was grateful that I could just hang out with my dogs on my porch and enjoy the sunshine and the brief quiet and the birds. But I could not do that if we didn't have each other to rely on, if I didn't have my husband, my nephew, my son helping care for all the things in the house, if I didn't have someone like Pastor Will who covered down several times, if we didn't have people like Jackie and Pastor KC who were caring for communications on all the fronts, if we didn't have Eric and Lee. Eric and Lee are these human beings that have been a gift to Foundry, but have been there's just something about what they're seeing and how they're communicating it to everybody, and that's because they can do all things in Christ. So if I've missed anybody on our staff, know that we're doing all of these things because we do it in Christ, who strengthens us, gives us peace, gives us rest, gives us love, more love to give out and distribute in the form of water bottles and hand sanitizer. And if any of you guys need more hand sanitizer when we do open up, we've got buckets full. But we do all the things. We do. And we do it because we do it in Christ. So this was my From the Red Room. I've gone over my time, I think. Sorry, Jackie. Sorry, Casey. But know that we're going to still do this, and pray for your clergy. that we get rest, and that we get moments of creativity, and that we continue to be gracious with each other and with ourselves. Continue to do all the things, Foundry folks, all the things. Much love. See you next time.